Yeah, the box position needs to be there. Yeah, okay, that's fine. So I think this should snap our verts properly. At least I think I got it right. Like, if the remainder is greater than half of the number, then we will check if the value is greater than 0. If it's greater than 0, we're going to add the number minus the remainder. So that'll take us from like 6 to 10, because that would be 10 minus 6, which would be 4. Otherwise, we are going to subtract that value, because that would take us from like a negative 40 to a, let's see, alright, yeah, it's 2 pixel grid. Yeah, I'm not aware of a seal or a floor function that's standard that takes a different, number to seal or floor to, other than the nearest integer. So let's just see what this does. Alright, so our buttons aren't showing up. So let's see. We've got these guys all here. Commands.snap all vertices to blah. Yeah, okay, so then you have to go add all these in here. That's what I'm talking about with just, it's not enough to rig everything up. You have to just keep adding all this stuff all over the place. And all these different files just to get, a new button into a place. It's not enough that you could like go make like a standard panel or something, and then you just include that panel onto something else. It's just or like okay, I made like a toolbar, right? So like here's just a list of buttons, and you can slap this toolbar wherever you want. It's like no, you have to build every separate toolbar separately, and all this stuff using all these builders and all this crap. So it's very ordered. Like you do this, then you do this, then you can include it over here, and then you can call it. And, it's like 4 or 5 things you have to do in order. And I imagine it's very nice to work with once you like know all the crap, and you're like, oh well, the reason it's not showing up is obviously you didn't add this toolbar button to your toolbar over here, and you just need to do that. I mean, come on. But if you're just getting into it, you just want to like modify something and do something very basic. It can be just frustrating because it's like, well, come on, like I just want to add a button to something. Isn't there just like add button and then bind delegate to button press? How hard can this be? This should be like a single line of code, and especially if I don't want anything, I don't want a custom icon or something else. I just want the word like, action, like crash the game button. Should be real easy to write that button. But you got to touch 4 or 5 files to do it. So yeah, we've got our snap buttons up there now. So let's see what they do. Snap to 10. Wait a minute. But I clicked on snap to nearest 100. And then yeah, you just have like one copy paste error, and then all of a sudden nothing works. And it's just such a clunky interface for all that. It's very precise, but it almost feels like this should be the code, which is behind some sort of tool that generates the UI for you. Like Qt, where you have an editor where you can very easily add widgets onto something, and then you hit like generate, and it generates a whole bunch of crap for you or whatever. And I mean, obviously, the system can do a whole bunch of stuff, and all that, but it's most likely that it could also be that I'm copy pasting code from somebody who equally is not happy with Slate or something, and kind of as a result of that, the code isn't very well written for Slate, and Alright, well, I think we already have an issue here, which is, let's just make sure these things actually did what they're supposed to. The vertices all look wrong. Alright, so it looks like our negative number modulus is wrong. So if it was greater than 0 and the value there, of course it's getting optimized out of there, so we can't really look at it. So what's probably happening here is, like, this thing goes from 520 to 560. And these 520s go to 520 instead of the right value. They at least don't move after it, but they're not right. Wish I could walk through this code. Yeah, we just can't see anything, can we? Negative 40. Okay, so supposedly the sign of the remainder is implementation defined and not actually defined by the language. So let's just do this. So let's just make sure we always have a positive remainder. And it's very clear there that we do not want to actually be snapping our y's nearly as much as our x's. So we might actually make a few more buttons here where it's like snap x and snap y. But yeah, that is looking like it's working properly. And I think we will need the X and the Y buttons. So let's go ahead and get that done. Hooray! Copy pasting all the things because we can. It's also just an incredible amount of code that you have to actually do anything with in order to make commands. Like you just have to type out so much garbage just to add another button or do anything. And yeah, it's like commentary has completely run out because I'm just like having to do all this stuff. I think that added them. Let's find out. Yeah, and a lot of this UI stuff for Slate just, well, I think they had like some sort of contract that they're working on with Scaleform back in the day. It fell through. Therefore, no Flash inside of Unreal. It's like, why is that messed up? Oh, because they're not referencing it the same way. Ah, yes. It's also interesting that the UI stuff all is hooked up like directly in C++ code for everything. Because I would have, because it doesn't need to be. You know, like the speed at which you create just like a little toolbar or something. You're not like opening up a new dialog menu 60 times per second. You're doing it like maybe once a second, even if you're clicking through real quick. So if we snap the X to 100 for everything, and we snap like is this Y? Now the question is, can we get the list of vertices as opposed to the things I want to get the things that are selected. So let's see, do we have like a T-array of selected vertices? We have a selected item set. So maybe these selected items are, we can go through every selected item and do it that way maybe? So we have is geometry selected at least. We do have get geometry being edited. Well, maybe we can just call that. Is it shapes? Well, theoretically, I can just do that and I will just get the shapes that are selected. And maybe I can just set the vertices manually? Let me try that. Because that would be probably better overall. Like instead of like messing around with the centers of boxes and everything else, we just snap the, you select what you want, then you click the snap button, then it just kind of works. Something like that at least. Nothing crazy. And we're really just getting around that it's hard to manually place all the vertices that you want on these things. It's easy just to like click, 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 but in an analog world, we want geometry and things to fit together nicely, and it's kind of hard to do that if we can't very easily mess with these things. So, we shall see if this works any better than it previously. We'll have all our big, stupid, gaudy buttons that we shoved all over our UI, and then we can complain about those. Alright, so these, let's see, the verts are 517, blah, so let's snap Y to 10. It snapped them to the nearest 15. Why is this off? It's off by the center of the box, maybe? Or something like that? Is that what's going on? Well, obviously we can't get the selected geometry, but the rest of it actually works pretty well. The problem is the box positions and box sizes are not getting set properly. So we have to do all those shenanigans to actually get this thing to do what we want. That's what it looks like. And maybe there's a better method. Instead of get geometry being edited, it's like get geometry being selected. And it's another thing to just like, once they're all kind of locked to those values, it's not too bad to deal with the rest. So the Y is locked to 10, that looks proper. This is locked to 50. Yeah, so that doesn't look too bad. Why don't we try it out on something else though? If we take this guy, we go to edit collision and we delete his collision. And we add a polygon. So we snap the X to 50s, snap the Y's to 10. Yeah, it definitely could work. It makes it not too awful to deal with. And we can get the fidelity we need. With this gigantically scaled thing. That should make it so we have something to snap to. Yeah, not bad. Not bad. This thing is gigantic. Holy shit. It didn't used to be so big. But Bitey found a new home in a log. Well, that should allow us to snap things pretty decently for what we want. It's funny once you get the right size on stuff. This thing used to have like fat sack running through it. The fat sack used to be as big as Bitey is now. Pretty much. Gigantic log, not a euphemism. Yeah. Yeah, that's just what happens when he's now the right height. So let's see what else is on the list. We have snap to grid for editor objects in the level. So is there a way to... Okay, so I'm reading some of the forums. So I need to figure out a way to snap an object to another one. To use it, hold down the V key while using the transform tool. Okay, so if I have two logs here, so I got another log. If I hold down the V key, this is not... This is not snapping like I would expect a snap to snap. Like... Because I mean, we can like... What can I snap to? Like, I'm able to snap it, I think, to... Maybe I can't snap it to this other object because it's like not wide enough or something. For instance, if I have two of these things and I clone this, I can snap it to an object, but I can't snap it is that what I can do? So this will snap to an object. So if I do V, Ugh. I can snap it exactly to the object. Is that actually working? Yeah, it's doing what it should. So what does that get me? It doesn't really get me a whole lot. I want to snap it next to an object. I'm going to grab a little bit of water and I'll be right back. A couple seconds. So let's see. If they have snapping to an object, they probably have snapping next to an object. Yeah, it looks like the documentation pretty much just says don't. You can snap to objects, but you should build all your objects in regularly sized units, and that's it. All right, so right mouse button, middle mouse, V. select the actor, right click onto the position where it should be, and then so I mean we could also move the pivot along a grid, and then if you snap this thing to an object, this doesn't really seem to do what I want. I mean, if they were made in a modular fashion, we could just drag them, but it'd be nice to be able to snap it to the edge of something. So what I want to do, object that follows, snap object next to object Unreal. I mean, the only thing we've got is you can hit the end key. That's what it's saying. I mean, it seems like a pretty simple thing. Like I've seen it in other programs like 3ds Max back in 8 to 10 years ago, where you could just snap things to each other. Yeah, everyone is just saying just position your object and build your stuff. So it doesn't look like there's a great way to actually do it. Um, it's pretty much just build everything in units, and you can snap them at least to each other and then drag them off. So we'd have to make sure that like the textures for our things are in the correct units when they're exported and everything like that. So like these logs, we can look at the actual texture for the log. And the texture for the log is 1100 wide. So yeah,